Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a closer look into one of the UK's most talked about indie rock bands, Catfish and the Bottlemen. Over the years, we've seen the band's lineup change quite a lot, with some pretty major departures, especially in the past few years. But before we get into the recent exits, though, I want to share a bit about my personal connection to the band, because I've been a fan for a while. I first really got into the Catfish and the Bottlemen when they performed, I believe it was Pacifier, on Radio 1's Live Lounge. I thought they were absolutely amazing. Definitely a band with something special. It was one of those moments where I just knew I had to see them live. And I did. Over the years, I followed them around to a few shows, seeing their sound evolve as they got bigger. In fact, I even ended up buying the same guitar as Van McCann, the Fender Telecaster Jim Root in flat black. I don't know what it was, but I loved that gritty, powerful sound he got from it. As a guitarist myself, I could totally relate to his vibe. Anyway, fast forward to now. And there's a lot more to Catfish's story than just the music we've all come to love. There's some real drama that's been going on behind the scenes for a few years now. So today I'm just going to be talking about some of the recent departures from the band, including the exit of Johnny, Bondy, or Bond, and Bob Hall, what it really means for the future of Catfish and the Bottlemen. I want to clarify that this comes from an insider I've been in contact with, a source who was close to Johnny and had a lot of insights into what's been happening within the band. So, grab a coffee, sit back, and let's break down what's really been going on. So Catfish and the Bottlemen burst onto the scene back in 2014 with their album The Balcony, and they've been one of the UK's most popular indie rock bands since, with tracks like Cocoon, Kathleen and Homesick, and my favourite, Pacifier, which I think is brilliant. They managed to capture this essence of youthful energy and that classic indie sound. Van McCann, the frontman, became the face of the band, and for a while they seemed unstoppable. They continued the rise, releasing The Ride in 2016 by The Balance in 2019. These albums solidified their place in the music world. But, like a lot of successful bands, things behind the scenes weren't as smooth as their music suggested. Catfish and the Bottlemen's lineup has gone through some pretty significant changes over the years, most notably the departures of key members. Let's start with the departure of Billy, who I thought was an amazing guitarist. I absolutely loved his sound and his tone of his guitar. The band's original guitarist, Billy, was there in the very beginning, helping to shape the sound we all know and love. But by 2014, Billy left the band. Officially, it was about creative differences, but there was a lot more to the story than what was publicly shared. From what I've been told, Billy wasn't happy with the direction the band was taking under Van McCann's leadership. There were creative differences, but also a lot of tension around the business side of things. Billy wasn't on the board with how Van wanted to handle the band's finances or the way the band was being managed. The differences eventually led to Billy stepping away, and by all accounts, it wasn't an amicable split. But what's interesting is that this kind of tension set the stage for more departures to come. Fast forward a few years, and the next major exit was Johnny Bondy. Bond's the band's guitarist who joined in 2014. Johnny played on both The Ride and The Balance, and was a key member of the band throughout those years. However, in 2021, Johnny officially confirmed he was leaving the band. And it wasn't just a casual departure. According to Johnny's own social media posts, he had been deliberating for a long time before making the decision. He explained that by March 2021, the personal and professional relationships within the band had become entirely dysfunctional. Bondy described his situation as one where circumstances beyond his control made it impossible for him to stay in the band any longer. Now, Johnny went on to say that there was behaviour within the band that he found intolerable. The constant toxicity, the abuse, the mismanagement, these were some of the key reasons why Johnny ultimately felt like he had no choice but to walk away. And this wasn't just a matter of creative differences, it was something deeper. The professional environment and personal relationships had reached a breaking point. Bond also mentioned that while he played a few shows as a session guitarist with the band after his official departure, he had no further contact with the remaining members of Catfish and the Bottlemen after. That it seemed like once Johnny left, things were pretty much over between him and Van McCann. And Johnny wasn't the only one to leave. The band's original drummer, Bob Hall, also parted ways with Catfish and the Bottlemen. Bob had been with the band from the very start, playing on all their albums to date, but last year Bob decided it was time to walk away as well. According to what I've been told, Bob's exit was rooted in a lot of the same issues that led to Johnny's departure, namely Van McCann's increasingly controlled behaviour and the toxic working environment. My source mentioned that Bob had been on the receiving end of a lot of the same abuse that Johnny experienced. This kind of mistreatment, combined with growing frustrations over how the band was being run, pushed Bob to leave. In fact, there's even been talk that Bob was considering legal action against Van McCann over the way he was treated during his time in the band. The details of that are a bit murky, but the overall picture is clear. Things were not good behind the scenes. So let's take a step back and look at what's really going on here. If we put all these departures together, Billy, Bibby, Johnny Bond and Bob Hall, it paints a pretty clear picture of the band struggling with internal issues. One of the main problems appears to be Van McCann's increasing control over the band. According to my source, it wasn't just about the music. Van seemed to want to have control over everything, from how the band was portrayed in the media to how the money was split. For example, during festivals, Van would apparently push for the band's image to be focused on him, often insisting that only his face to be shown on the screens behind the band, rather than showing the whole band together. On top of that, there were issues with the band's earnings. Normally festival fees would be split equally among the band members, but according to my source, Van wanted to change the dynamic. Instead of splitting everything evenly, Van wanted to keep most of the money for himself and pay the other band members individually. Now that, to me, is a bit of a big red flag in terms of band dynamics and trust. There's also the issue of Van's substance abuse. My source told me that Van was often off his head on drugs, especially cocaine, during the tours. This isn't just speculation. There were multiple reports of him being in a constant state of intoxication, which obviously contributed to the toxic atmosphere within the band. So now we're left with just two official members of the band, Van McCann and bassist Benji Blakeway. After the departures of Johnny Bond and Bob Hall, it's clear that the band is in a different place than what it was before. Van McCann is still leading the charge, but it's hard to say how long this will last with the remaining members. But the thing is, Catfish and the Bottlemen story is a cautionary tale. From the outside, they looked like a perfect indie band, but the reality of behind the scenes was filled with personal conflict, substance abuse and serious control issues. The future of the band is uncertain. Fans are still wondering what's next for the Catfish and the Bottlemen. Now, when I refer to my contact, an insider, it's not really an insider, it's more of basically I'm an engineer and I'm working on site, and I got talking to this guy who was drinking a cup of tea and had Catfish and the Bottlemen on his cup. And I said, we got talking about the band, and I basically said, I love Catfish and the Bottlemen. And he was like, oh yeah, I've seen them, I used to follow them all over. I'm really close with Bandy. And he basically, long story short, he got into telling me about his departure and why he left and how controlling Van McCann were. So basically, that's where I've got all the information from. I did grab a bit from online forums and stuff like that. Whether this is all true, I just don't know, but we'll see. But I will say one thing. I was watching Catfish and the Bottlemen last night on the recentest gigs, like 2024. I don't think they've played this year yet. But if you do look at the live gigs that they've played, you do kind of see only Van McCann on the screen. Maybe that's a coincidence to the video I watched. But anyway, I'll leave that up for you to decide. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. No hate on Catfish and the Bottlemen. I still think the music's amazing. I wouldn't mind seeing them again. Hopefully this year, maybe. But as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.